This Sunday I have a special guest, a man that says that there is still hope for Africa and that behind all the images of gloom and doom, there is another Africa, an Africa on the move. Join me as I interview the former President of Mauritius. Mr. President, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
You've been in retirement for a couple of years now. What are you doing? How do you spend your time after being president?
You know, when I was going to leave office, I was asked that question. What are you going to do afterwards? I said, I like very much the continent of Africa. I would like to do something for the continent because I think that Africa has got a bright future. But not many people knows Africa, really what is happening. So I met President Chissano, and I talked to him, why don't we make something on the continent? Because there was a link missing in our structure. We have people who start for parliamentarians, they become members of parliament, they become president, and after presidency, they just vanish. So we see people outside the continent coming to Africa to teach us what we should do. So why can't we do it ourselves? And he accepts the idea. And on the 11th of January 2006, a group of us met in Maputo, Mozambique, and we created Africa Forum, which is a platform, an informal platform of former head of states and government.
Not all of them.
Not all of them. That is a question. We must be, if we want to be a member, have been elected democratically and have been left power democratically. And even there must be a consensus among the members to come to be a member of the forum. And we put our time, our experience, and our knowledge in the name and at the disposal of the African Union, of the sitting president, and of the continent of Africa.
And you are happy doing that? You find it satisfying?
It's a lot of satisfaction.
Yes. Who else is on it? I mean, our ex-president, President Rawlings, belongs to that.
President Rawlings is a founder member. Chissano is the chairperson, former president of Mozambique. Yeah. President Soglo is the deputy chairperson. We have President Masire from Botswana.
Soglo was Benin?
Soglo was Benin. Right. President Masire from Botswana. Kaunda from Zambia. Mboyoyo from Burundi. Ingui from Tanzania. Oh, there is Njoma from Namibia. And we have we are about 18 of us when we sign it. Today we are 30 of us.
Yes. You said, as you answered, that you devote your time to Africa. People don't quite know Africa, and you almost suggest, in a sense, that Africa has a bright future. Or in a sense, what gives you reason to be optimistic about Africa, given the state it's in?
You know, coming from a country like Mauritius, where you have everything against us, those who know Mauritius are surprised, because Mauritius is a teeny island of 720 square miles, lost in the middle of the Indian Ocean, without any resources, where everyone thought that there is no economic future for that island. We manage not only to survive, but to make people surprised of our economic development. And I was asking myself, if we have been able to do that with all the odds against us, can you believe that we are visited by cyclones for 6 months of the year, from November to April? And we have been able to do it. So the continent of Africa is a rich continent where you have land, you have minerals, you have raw materials, and it's a big market of 900 million people. So what we can do with that?
But how have you done it? That's a good point that you make. Perhaps your optimism comes from the country that you reside in. But tell me, what is it about Mauritius that has truly, in a few words, I mean, I'll go into detail, but if you were pressed to say in a few words, what is it that has transformed Mauritius, to make it a success story? What is it? How has it done it?
You know, when you have your back to the world, to the wall, you have two things. Whether you die or you fight back. We don't want to die. Because Mauritius has to do these two things, and we want to fight back. And with that spirit in mind and the will to succeed, we look for a very good leadership. And we have a very good Prime Minister, which was a very good leader, strong leader, dedicated to our cause, and have a vision of the future. So you must have the will. You must have a leadership which is strong and visionary. You must have a leader which is dedicated to his people, because once you create the wealth, you must share it with the people. And you must have your priority right, if I can say it in a nutshell. If you do that, you have a chance of success.
So leadership obviously is key.
Is the key. And not only this leadership, you must have vision. And especially because the problem is so big sometimes in our country, and some people does not know where do they start?
Yeah.
Because it is so variety of problems. Then they must have a priority which is right.
So what is a visionary leader? I mean, we hear this expression all the time. I mean, people say it so easily. You need a visionary leader. Who is this person? What is it that makes one person a visionary and another not?
You know, a leader, when I said it must be dedicated, don't forget that if you choose to lead a country, you are the servant of that country. You are the servant of the people who have chosen you to do during the time of office their will. You promise that when you go in an election. Now, when you are at the head of the state and you have in front of you all these people who have elected you, you have promised them something. You must keep your word. A good visionary leader must be somebody of his word. Never tell somebody something that you cannot succeed, you cannot do. Even if you make somebody angry with you, if you can't, don't say yes. When you say yes, it must be yes. You must be a man of your word. And that's what I mean, a visionary. There is something I would add to that. Because when you are a leader, when you are a president of a country, you have to deliver goods. You have to develop your country. Once you have created the national cake, you must divide it with the people. Because people must have a share of it. If you create the wealth and you don't give it to the people, or you keep it for yourself, or you give it only to a group of people, then you are not doing your work. A visionary, you create the cake, the national cake, and you subdivide it back to the people.
It's one thing to have great dreams and a commitment to your people, and it must be another thing to know which way to go.
It's not an easy task, yes. That is why I say you must have your priority. Let's say, for instance, in Mauritius, when our group took power in 1982, the country was in a very bad state. We owe everyone. And we had only in our foreign currency earnings, we had only provision for 10 days import only in 1982.
That's how bad it was.
It was so bad. And at that time, we were looking for support from the IMF and the World Bank to have their agricultural, the strategic financing support. Because we had at that time free education, they said, how can you be generous? You don't have money and you are giving free education to people. And they said to us, you are going free medical service to people, and you have an oversized civil servant. Get rid of all these. So we told them, no, we have only our young people, and we are bilingual, French and English. Let us educate them. Let us put money, let us as a government put money on our young people, so that once they are educated with our bilingual, we can develop our country. We managed to make them change their mind, and they gave us the money. It was not easy, but because we were credible, and that is another thing that is very important. If you are credible, people, you can talk, you can start to have contract with people. But people will only lend you money on your credibility. And fortunately for us, we were credible, though we were poor. And we managed to have that.
Credible meaning what? That you showed a sense of direction, commitment? Is that what you mean? To be
Now,
credible?
a man of your word.
Back to that. Being
Whatever is the cost, you take it.
honestly, just take it.
Yes. This is what is important. And it's not an easy thing. It's easy to say, okay, I will promise you that. I will do that. And you don't really believe in it.
So just to come back to that, now that you say that, what that means also, I would imagine, is that part of the reason that this country has been transformed is because there's been good investment in education. Am I correct? Would we say that investing in people is perhaps one of the most important things to do to develop a country?
Yes and no for Mauritius. Yes, for every country, I would advise, whatever be the cost, invest in education because it's the key of success. But for Mauritius, it was not only that. Once you have educated your people, you must go now for development. So we had the chance to have a very good sugar sector. So we use the process of money from the sugar revenue, and sugar in the 70s represent 90% of our foreign currency earning. And we use sugar, and from sugar we diversify around it. We diversify from sugar to textile, from sugar to tourism, from sugar to services, from sugar to offshore banking, and now we are going massively in IT. But if we didn't have sugar at that time, we'll be in big problem. And secondly, we had a very aggressive Mauritian investors. So people in Mauritius, those who have got money in the sugar sector, they were willing to invest in our country.
You mean Mauritian people? You don't mean foreign direct investment?
No. In the beginning, and I can tell you one thing, because the former government, which was before 1982, tried to develop textile in the export processing zone. They failed. They tried to develop tourism, and we had to sell two of our best hotels to the South African because we could not run them.
Your best what? I'm sorry, sir?
We have to sell two of our best hotels to the South African because we could not rent them. And now, if God's give us what we have seen, by the end of this year, we'll reach about 900,000 tourists this year. And we are forecasting, if things goes on, in 2015, we might have 2 million tourists in Mauritius. You see?
Is that your biggest earner currently, tourism?
There are three sectors in competition.
So that's the diversification you refer to.
We have sugar, we have textile, and tourism, the three of them.
You said, yes, education was important. Then you did that, and then you went for development. I come back to that question. So is it correct to say that you have to start with education?
Yes, because, if your people is not educated, how will they manage the new techniques? For instance, we have the best research center in the world in sugar. All our chemists, where do we come from if they are not educated? So all those people working in our in our research center of sugar are Mauritian people. So we have to train them. And I can assure you we are the best in the world in sugar. So if we want to make a variety of cane which resists pest, which give you more sugar, which resists cyclone, so we have to make experiment. So how do we do that if we don't have our technician? Now, if we want to have a tertiary things, our professors at the university, if we want to have schools, secondary schools, where do we find our teachers? Where do we find our architects? Where do we find our lawyers? Where do we find our judges? So this is how education is important. That's why we invest a lot in pre-primary, primary, secondary. They are free in Mauritius until today.
Free education?
Free education for all, boys and girls.
Throughout primary and secondary as well?
Yes, and partly tertiary.
But, so how do you fund that? Because, I mean, we're always told that the challenge is where are the resources for this sort of thing?
This is the challenges that we kept, because we know whatever be the cost, we have to invest. So we take taxes, direct taxes and indirect taxes, and we share the money to that. You know, when we created the national cake, I give you an example. You know how much money goes back to the people, and that is what I say for a visionary leader. Let's say that the cake is 100. 44 goes back to the people. 44.
What do you mean by that?
That means free education for everyone, free medical service. If you are a Mauritian, you have a problem, you're high, you have a problem with your heart, you have a problem for your renal problems, you have anything, you are looked after in our hospital freely. Social security system, ministries with social vocation, like women's affairs, families affairs, youth and sports, these are not productive ministries. We spent money. So it represented 44 out of 100. It's a lot, you see? And this is our philosophy of sharing the wealth of the country.
Education sometimes might have the resources and will happen. And then there's also the issue of the kind of education. I'm quite curious. Did Mauritius sort of focus on any particular kind? Was vocational and technical education more important than grammar, typical grammar education? What was the situation with regard to that?
In the beginning, when we started our tertiary sector, we didn't go for a full-fledged university. In the beginning, we started by parts. We knew that we wanted administrators, social workers, some engineers, not to the highly skilled engineers. We didn't have at that time medical schools. We just started our medical school. We didn't have at the time lawyers' schools. We started recently our lawyers. So we started what the country needs first.
And this need is determined obviously by the overall national strategic direction,
yes,
is that it?
That's correct. This is how we done it, you see? And this gave us the chance to train the people, and you know, once you educate something, and especially when he has a master degree or doctorate, and if he afterwards he does not have a job, he will have a big problem. So we must find something for him. That's why we go slowly in the beginning, and now we are developing it to other sector where we can have many things.
Brain drain, did you suffer from it?
Oh yes, yes. We are suffering from it because Mauritius is so small, and the attraction, because some people goes overseas for training. They go to France, to UK, to the States, to Canada, to India, to Australia, and the possibility they have there, we can't give them. But we have a chance But the life in Mauritius is very cheap, you see. And we face that kind of problems. But fortunately for us, we have been able to have the quantity of people that we need. But that does not stop the brain drain. But fortunately, until now, we are very lucky to have in every sector of services in Mauritius, Mauritian at the top. You see, and even we have sometimes where we have a surplus and people can go abroad in countries nearby to work.
But you have cultivated that, haven't you? Deliberately cultivated
yes,
that.
we have done it, you see, because we think that it is important to acquire knowledge, and once you acquire knowledge, you can do whatever you want afterwards.
Your Excellency, I was listening to you this week talk about your increasing focus on IT. Why? Why is that suddenly so important to you?
There's two reasons for that. This is the new techniques. You can't talk now if you don't talk IT. Everything is IT. And secondly, you know, we have a very strong link with India. India has not gone only historical link with Mauritius, it has got family link with Mauritius. And India, which is very aggressive in IT, you know that, they have, if my figures is correct, about 35% of the programmers in Silicon Valley, the states, are Indian origin.
Yes.
You see? So they told us, when we asked them we want to acquire this skill, they said, okay, but we knew that they wanted something from us also. And what they wanted from us is they have access to the English-speaking countries, but they don't have access to the French-speaking countries. And as we are bilingual, they want us to use our master key to open the doors of the French-speaking African countries.
Interesting.
So it's
Mutual.
donnant, you see? So they gave us something, we give them something. So we are prepared to work together in that specific field. Because Mauritius, we are very ambitious, you know.
The people or the leadership?
All of us, the people and the leadership also. We want to do what Singapore has done with Asia. We want to do more than that, because our historical and family link with Asia, especially China and India, because we are part of Africa as a member, as I said to you, as family, because in my blood there is slave blood.
African blood.
African blood. So we want to bridge the two continents. When you see the two emerging economies of the world today is China and India. And Mauritius is well situated. You see them passing by to go to Africa. So we said, why don't we work together? Why do Mauritius take advantage of what it has as opportunity to develop the country and to, at the same time, help developing the continent of Africa, where it belongs to. And if Asia, because our link to Asia can help that, we do it, because we believe in that.
But you are, Your Excellency, really, you are confident that Africa will change in what sort of time span? I mean, this is a complex continent with many of the difficult issues. I mean, all the poor countries, majority are here. It doesn't matter whether it's AIDS or malaria. It almost seems hopeless to a point.
Yes, it seems like that if you look at it on one side of it. But look at it on the other side of it.
What is the other side of it?
The other side of it, let's say since the last 15 years, there have been increasingly improvement in Africa, whether in the field of good governance, election. I don't know how many countries have got now free and fair election. Presidents are elected and leave power when they lost election. Now you have democracy, multi-party system. You have separation of power between the judiciary, the legislative, and the parliament. So you have these things. Now you have people who have started anti-corruption things. There is less war. And there is even economic development in Africa. If I give you the figures, I was just talking this morning to students. The least developing countries, what people always want to say, sub-Saharan countries, which comprises about 38 to 40 countries. Economic growth in the least developing countries, it's 5.8%. Not my figure, IMF and World Bank figure. And it's going to be a bit more this year. So when you see this, an average, now when you see out of the 53 countries, inflation rate, 40 countries out of the 53, one-digit inflation rate. Can you believe that? But this, not many people talk about it.
It's not in the news.
You know, they will put forward to you Mugabe, an inflation rate there. And they will talk to you about corruption, about fighting. There is only 3 sources of fighting, of wars now in Africa. So this is positive. But to add more information to you about that, when you see all these people queuing to come and develop Africa, Europeans, Americans, Chinese, Indians, why do they want to come in Africa?
They see opportunity.
They see opportunity.
Is that a threat to Africans?
No. But we must take care. Don't make the same mistake that we make in the past. Because when people come to your side, he is looking for his interests.
Yeah.
We agreed on that. You must defend your interests because it is your interest against his interest. So if we go as partner, real partner, you see, he will look after his interests and you will look after your interests. We can work together. So there where we must be intelligent and wise to keep what we have and use it for the development of our continent. And I am confident, even with all the problems that we are facing, because of the variety of possibility that exists in Africa. The continent is big, is immense. We have everything that the world is looking today. All raw materials are here.
And yet we are the poorest.
We are the poorest because we have, first of all, we in our mind do not believe that what we have is rich. We must make our mind to think we are a continent of rich opportunities.
And we have something.
We have something. Let us do something with it. If we reach that level, we gain. You see? And that's what is important.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
I really
Mr.
appreciate
David.
you
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.